6 years have passed since the release of Breath of the Wild, but has time stood still in Hyrule since then? I don't think so, and I also believe it is a deliberate move by the Zelda team, since how do you best change the same landscape from one game to another? Let some time pass. And one thing that became clear in the February trailer is that time has passed between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, a fact that both Monster Maze and Zelda Lore have pointed out in their topical and analysis videos. But the big question is, how much time is Tears of the Kingdom skipping from Breath of the Wild? Well, that is what this video is all about, so be sure to celebrate the 6th anniversary of the latter by leaving a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to get this video past 2017 likes and the channel to 333,333 subscribers by May 12th. When the Zelda team decided to turn the concept of the Zonai and Ganondorf from DLC 3 to a full-blown sequel, they also eliminated a different hurdle. Time, as DLC would need to be set not long after the battle against Dark Beast Ganon and couldn't allow for too many changes to the open world, mainly due to limited development time, so at most 1.5 years since it had to release before Smash Ultimate. With a sequel, however, they could turn the clock forward, definitely by a few years. In other words, before either of them would show any signs of aging, but also long enough to allow for major construction and repair projects across Hyrule to be underway and completed. All to grant a fresh experience even before adding the Zonai Green and Ganondorf's Red, far more numerous areas of Malice to every key area of the 72 square kilometer map. But how much time is required to make a significant difference? I would say 5 to 6 years. Exactly the amount of time that the Zelda team knew it would take to make a new game with the original late 2022 release window. Naturally, the delay in March 2022 caused the game to come out over 6 years after Breath of the Wild, seeing that this upload day marks for that exact date, but it is uncertain whether it came too late to also turn the clock over 6 years in-game. Yes, what I'm implying is that the time skip in the game is equivalent or near to the real time that in our own world and time from March 3rd, 2017, so Breath of the Wild, to May 12th, 2023 for Tears of the Kingdom. Just think of it, equally as much time passes in Hyrule when Link and Zelda enter that cave as the time we have been waiting since beating Breath of the Wild in 2017. Now that would be brilliant game design and also bring up a number of possibilities and questions as we return to Hyrule right at the end of a brief interbellum or interwar gap. The short piece where Princess Zelda returned to her friends, that being Impa in Kakariko, Purah in Hateno and Robbie in Akala, gave closure to King Dorephan and Prince Sidon by offering her condolences for the loss of Princess Mipha, and even befriended the friends of Link in the Goron, Rito and Gerudo tribes, and naturally also Paya, the granddaughter of Impa. Together with Link, she is treated as a hero for dealing the final blow. With this status as a living goddess, she might even have governed what was left of the Hylians from Link's home in Hateno, teaming up with the Balsam brothers to continue their effort to bring new construction to the Hylians and Hyrule, setting up new structures in Hateno and Tarrytown in the modernist style, but at the same time also order repairs and renovations of the historic stone and brick structures that were incompletely ruined 100 years ago. Mainly the holiest sites for the Hylians before the near extinction, so Hyrule Castle and the Great Plateau in Tears of the Kingdom. We have to remember Zelda's goal in the true ending of Breath of the Wild. And for those of you who don't remember, let me play it for you to remind you of her ambition.
I believe in my heart that if all of us work together, we can restore Hyrule to its former glory. Perhaps even beyond, but it all must start with us.
Right here, we see the potential of a time skip that is over 5 years long compared to a year or less than a year. And as Zelda Lore pointed out in his analysis, the Great Plateau has seen some repairs from Breath of the Wild in Tears of the Kingdom by the time the Blood Moon rises for the first time since defeating Calamity Ganon and Dark Beast Ganon. Works that certainly have been ordered and overseen by the princess in her attempt to restore. Of course, we all know how it ends, as everything turns out to be decorated for Ganondorf and his minions, and in particular if also the castle has seen renovations or repairs. You know, the sanctum where the floor was crushed by Calamity Ganon, which now has become Ganondorf's new throne room, from where he oversees his continued destruction of Hyrule, undoing most of Princess Zelda's effort. Even so, we see Hateno standing, which means that a certain fort was probably also repaired and manned once again. Fort Hateno. But what else than building and renovating would the princess do? The one thing she couldn't for the last 100 years. Spend time researching, but also building further feelings for her loved one. Link, the love of her life, who she now has lived together with in Hateno. If they've had 5 or even 6 years since we said goodbye to them, then they are now biologically around 23 years old as Zelda turned 17 on the day of the calamity prior to sealing herself with it. The point is, Hyrule has likely changed more in the few years that have passed from Breath of the Wild to Tears of the Kingdom than in the last 100 years between the Great Calamity and the beginning of Breath of the Wild. And that is before we count in the hidden Zonai structures of green along with the Sky Islands becoming visible as Ganondorf ruined much of the surface. The loss of most ancient Sheikah tech limited some progress, but Princess Zelda with the Hylian and Sheikah will to rebuild definitely accomplished a lot. But certainly they must not have been alone in this process. Absolutely, as the disappearance of monsters with no more blood moons for, say, 5 years or so also allow for their other tribes to expand their operations. Specifically, the 4 Divine Beast champion or pilot tribes, the Zora, Gorons, Rito, and Gerudo. Sidon is being prepared to become king after Princess Mipha was killed in action. Yunobo has had time to build further respect among the Gorons. Teba has had time to be influenced by Kaz to also become a leader, while Riju has got the years to nearly be at the age that Link and Zelda had in the moment of the Great Calamity. Even wiser and definitely stronger, as she has probably beside building projects in the desert and path to it, been building muscles with her warriors. After all, the Yiga still remain in the Highlands scheming, and hence a strong military is required to keep them in check. And as we're detailing this, we begin to realize the potential of Tears of the Kingdom along with a timeskip. Namely, how much our favorite characters from Breath of the Wild have changed, and the most likely reason why we so far have only seen one NPC by the time we were a little over 2 months away from Tears of the Kingdom's release. In this case, perhaps Zelda's shorter haircut and new style was our first hint that more than just a few months had passed, since this haircut right here could symbolize one thing more than anything: a fresh start, just like her new Nintendo Switch formed Sheikah Slate. Perhaps some months, if not even a year, before we saw her fresh look in that cave in 2019. A moment we might even see as a memory cutscene, as some of the memories this time might just be scenes of what happened between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, including whether Link and Zelda went on a tropical, beach, scientific and spiritual vacation to Faron, Lorelin and its Hylian and Zonai sites, along with funding new research into the mysterious tribe which today might be Hylian but still has some Zonai blood going far back. The point I'm trying to make is that as we get to the locations we know and love from Breath of the Wild, we might see the impact of Princess Zelda's time on this surface, with the wealth that comes from being a monarch. After all, the treasury of Hyrule Castle might have been spent by the princess on reconstruction, building a new military which Link is the new general of, and her passion, scientific research. We have to remember, Tears of the Kingdom will be more than doom and gloom on the surface, as Breath of the Wild's main settlements were already in the outskirts of the map, and I'm certain that most of these, as teased in the Hateno scene, will be oases of peace in a surface otherwise covered in malice, at least in much of the game. A combination of horror and safe places, just like we will probably see in all the other layers of the sky and underground. Only that there will be more safe zones in the sky than the surface, and the underground will be a place where we will cry tears of joy by getting to a place where we can rest. Now that is what we call a game worthy of the title of a sequel. A game that takes everything great from Breath of the Wild, lets a few years pass with an ambitious monarch in charge, and then bring the threat back. Diamond Class, or if you prefer Game of the Year game design, right there. And more we think of it, a direct sequel without any time skip in the same territory and characters doesn't make sense. The same goes for a prequel story, as even 2018's masterpiece Red Dead Redemption 2 takes place several years before Red Dead Redemption. But in the Zelda series, a time skip in the same territory has only happened once before in the first sequel. From Zelda 1986 to Zelda 2 the year after, but in-game 7 years later. A game that also massively expanded the world of Hyrule, but horizontally rather than vertically, which is the case in Tears of the Kingdom, and where the ultimate goal was the Triforce of Courage. Anyway, that is what I wanted to say on the 6th and final Breath of the Wild anniversary prior to the release of Tears of the Kingdom. Get really excited and ready for not only the new layers, but the massive changes applied to the surface that the Zelda team reused. Now it is your turn to share your thoughts and ideas on how much time has passed and what has changed in Hyrule in that time between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, without bringing up any leaks in the comment section down below, as those will be deleted. If you haven't already, then be sure to leave a like, subscribe and press the notification bell to support the channel. And last but not least, a big thanks goes to all patreon.com/commonroll patrons, and in particular our raw producer Charles Shash. You rock, and please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.